Let's talk server mods. So the thing about server mods is if you're playing and you're joining somebody else's server, you don't have to worry about them. They are whatever they are, and you can ask whoever's running the server what server mods they're running. But if you are playing by yourself or you're starting your server that you're hosting, you may want to add some server mods to make the game easier or just different in some way. You could actually make it harder, although that's not really the server mods that I use at my level of this game. So I'm going to go through some of the server mods, and just like my last video talking about the client mods, I will tier these as A, must-have, B, nice but not must-have, and C, purely optional cosmetic type thing. First one up in alphabetical order, animal variety. This is C tier. It's purely cosmetic. It just takes some of the animals in the game. You get to choose which ones, like bunnymen, butterfly, gobblers, on or off, and it adds color variety to them so that they're not all the same. It's fun. If you play a lot of DST, things can get a little monotonous to the eye, and animal variety adds a little bit of a different palette. API Gem Core, this is A tier if you want to run another mod which is down in the list called Global Positions. So I'm going to talk about both of them at the same time. Global Positions is the mod, it's a server mod that lets you see every other player on the map, even if they're somewhere you've never explored before, and you can see their map. So it's a total game change mod, but if you are playing as a team, it makes the game much easier. In order to run Global Positions, you have to have API Gem Core. So I consider it an A tier if you want a easier experience. If you're trying to challenge yourself as a member of a team, there are ways to make maps for each other in the game. You can make a cartographer's desk and a map scroll and share those. That adds a layer of challenge to the game, but you know, when me and my players are playing together, we just like to be able to see each other. So we always use Global Positions and the API Gem Core. Okay, Beefalo status bar. This gives you status on your beefalo, their health, their domestication, their obedience, their hunger level, and what type of beefalo they are, whether they're trending as you're taming them towards an ornery beefalo or a rider beefalo or a pudgy beefalo. I don't know why anybody would want a pudgy beefalo, but they exist. If you are going to tame a beefalo, and I tame a beefalo a lot in my games, unless I'm playing a high DPS character, it makes it much easier to see what's going on with your beefalo. So I think it's one of those, for me, A-tier mods. If you don't ever plan to tame a beefalo, it has no benefit to you whatsoever. Buff Timer, this is, I'd say, a B tier mod. It's one that we're experimenting with right now. My son likes to play Warley, and of course, because of Warley's spices, we have a lot of buff foods in the game. This one just puts a little counter in the top left of your screen that tells you how much time you have left on the different kinds of buffs, like garlic powder or chili flakes that make you do more damage. So, you know, it's a nice to have, but you can tell in other ways whether you're still buffed, and I don't think it's absolutely essential. Okay, Epic Health Bar. This is it's a B tier, and there's two different mods that do this kind of thing that show you the monsters that you're fighting. It shows you how much health they have. Epic Health Bar is one of them, and Simple Health Bar DST is the other. Simple Health Bar DST shows you every, or at least it can be configured to show you every enemy and what their health is and your health. And it's what I used to use when I was learning to play the game. I highly recommend it for new players. I'd say A tier for new players. But once you've got a little bit more experience, You know, it makes the game a little too easy to always see the health of the spiders or the beefalo or whatever. So I've moved on to Epic Health Bar, which only does it for bosses, and I find that really useful to me right now. Someday I may get to the point where I don't even want that. A streamer that I watch, Demon Rebuilt, has noted that just knowing how much health your boss has does change your play style. If you can tell that they only need a few more hits, you play differently. And he's probably right. So I'm using this Epic Health Bar for now, but you don't have to use it. So I'd say A minus, B plus. Finder Redux. This basically makes it easy to find where you've got certain things in chests. It's a quality of life mod. If I'm holding on, say, rocks in my inventory, it'll highlight any chests in the area that have rocks in them. It just keeps things more organized that way and helps you get so that you don't have 9 different chests that have your rocks in them. And I like it. And you can configure what color the highlight is, but it's certainly not essential. We'll call it a B tier. Gecko Trap. My son likes this one because he likes to move around geckos when they're in the world. Normally, you can't catch a gecko in a trap. This mod lets you do it. I don't care about it so much. I don't usually use it when I'm playing by myself. We'll call it B tier. We've already talked about global positions. Hunt on Beefalo. Another B tier mod here. This one basically lets you do animal hunts, like for qualiphants or Eucus, while you're on a beefalo instead of having to get off the beefalo to look at the tracks every time. Just makes things a little faster, a little easier if you play with beefalos, which, like I said, I do a lot. Lazy Furnace and Ice Furnace, these two here, both do different things with the same object, which is the Lazy Furnace. Or the desert, is it called a Desert Furnace, I think? You get it with the Dragonfly blueprint, and it's a nice structure. It gives off a little bit of infinite light, a little bit of infinite heat. You can warm your thermal stones by it. You can cook on it. Lazy Furnace gives it basically inventory slots where you can put ingredients, food ingredients into it and cook them, or cook stacks of stuff at a time. Also lets you instantly overheat thermal stones. It's a quality of life mod to make the Dragonfly Furnace a little bit more useful, and I'll give it a B. Ice Furnace lets you turn those Dragonfly Furnaces into cold furnaces, and they basically do the opposite of the Lazy Furnace. They keep things permanently cold with inventory slots that you can configure to create ice. It's a little bit of a cheat because otherwise getting ice can be very hard in the game. You have to do it at the right... It's not hard, but you have to do it during winter. And sometimes you're busy with other stuff. Again, I'd say B tier, and all of these things just make the game a little bit easier, change the gameplay a little bit to the point where it's a little bit less challenging, and you know what? That's okay. All right, Insight mod. This one is A tier. I talked in the last video about the client mod, Show Me. Insight is the server mod version of that, so you don't want to run them both. But Insight basically lets you hover your mouse over anything in the game, and it will give you a ton of information. It will tell you what percentage is on a hunt that you're going to get a Varg or a Eucus. It will show you your lightning rod range. It will help you find pip spooks to make your, Abigail stuff if you're playing Wendy and Abigail. It shows all the stuff about food, how much hunger and health and sanity it gives you. It shows you stuff about farm plots, how much soil nutrients they have of the different kinds. It almost gives you too much information, honestly, and I've got some of it turned off because it gives you so much info that it can make the game, one, a little bit too easy. A lot of this game is that you don't have all the information. Insight gives you a lot of information. So I do recommend it, especially for new players. I think it's an A tier for new players. But as you get more experienced, I think you want to consider turning some of those insights off so you get a little bit less. One of the first things I turned off was the boss indicators that tell you in what direction Deerclops is, or Bearger, for instance. Probably I'm at the point where I should turn off even a few more things. So Insight mod, though, A tier for a new player for sure. Mini rework. This is something I've downloaded, but I haven't played with. It's specific for Wirt, so no point in talking about it. Moving box updated. This is an interesting one. It's a quality of life mod. Sometimes you build a structure like, say, a science machine, and you want to move it after you've built it. Well, you could hammer it down and get half the ingredients back, or use a deconstruction staff and get all the ingredients back and then just rebuild it where you want it. Or you can save time and resources by packing it up in a moving box, putting it on your back, moving it slowly, because a moving box that's packed is like a statue. You move slowly with them unless you're also on a beefalo. And then you can put it down wherever you want it and unpack it, and there it is. And, again, a little bit of a cheat in the sense that it conserves resources. But, if you're just doing it to make your base look nicer, who cares? It's fun. So I'd say this is a B tier mod. Prefab counter. This, if you're setting up worlds and you want to make sure they have a good mix of stuff, this is a useful mod because you can when you have this enabled, you can run the PC count command inside the game, and it will tell you things like how many juicy berry bushes you have in the world, how many marble statues, how many mandrakes, how many beefalo, how many volt goats, etc., how many walrus camps. That's a big one if you want the triple Mac in addition to the McTusk that's at the Moonstone. So I use prefab counter when I'm trying to make sure that the world I've generated to play on has enough interesting stuff. Let's say I only want to play a world with juicy berry bushes. I generate the world, I do prefab counter, and then I know. So I would say if you are trying to generate worlds that have specific stuff, then this is a tier. And if you don't care about that and you just want to play whatever comes randomly, which is a challenge, then don't use prefab counter at all. Pumpkin patches, C tier. It adds little pumpkin patches to the deciduous biomes. It's kind of fun and cute, but it does put more food in the world, making it easier not to starve. It just makes the game a little bit easier. But I think it breaks up the boring, frankly, deciduous biomes a little bit. Realistic placement, interesting mod that lets you put buildings and stuff much closer, structures much closer together than the game normally lets you, even to the point that you could trap yourself inside a bunch of structures. I used to use this one a lot. I've been trying to do without it recently. I would say B tier unless you are a base builder who really wants to design things your way, in which case it's very important. Revive Beefalo, just got this mod, have never played with it. It basically lets you revive dead Beefalo who are bonded to a bell the same way you can revive ghost players. If it works. Like I said, I have just got it, haven't tried it, but I do play with Beefalo a lot, and it takes, like over 20 days to tame a Beefalo, more like 25 if you rush it early in the game, when you don't have a brush. And, it's just so demoralizing when your Beefalo dies. More demoralizing than when you die, because you can revive yourself if you've been smart and you've got a life-giving amulet or a meat effigy. Well, you can't do that with a Beefalo, but with this mod you can. I'm going to try it out. I think it could be interesting. I'll say A tier if you are a Beefalo player who doesn't want to go through the heartache of multiple domestications during your long game. Already talked about simple health bar. Smart mini sign. This is just a QLL mod. It places an automatic mini sign that has the icon of whatever the first thing is in the chest. And if you change whatever the first thing is in the chest, the icon changes. Normally you'd have to put down your own signs, draw on them with a feather pencil, and they wouldn't change. So is it a cheat? Kind of, but again, it just, if you have a big base and you've got a lot of chests and you're going to dedicate each chest to a different kind of item, I just think it speeds things up, makes it a little bit easier, and I'm okay with it. So I would say B tier. A couple other tools or fuels. This lets you burn old tools for heat and light, but mostly to get rid of them. I think it's a nice mod that ends up, you don't have to create like a trash heap in your base. You can just burn up old stuff. B tier. Trinket variety is kind of like the animal variety. It just adds different colors to the trinkets that you can trade to Pig King for gold. C tier, because it's just cosmetic. Unbreakable Magiluminescence, I don't use this a lot because honestly I don't use Mages a lot. I probably should, but I don't. But if I did, one of the big problems is if you let them hit 0, you can refuel them, but if you let them hit 0, they break on you. This makes it so that they just stick around at 0, and of course they don't work. Those are the mods, some of which I don't use very much, but most of which I use when I do a world. The rest of the server mods I have here, I've used a time or two, like Bats Begone. This is an interesting one. You can put giant beeswaxed garlic near sinkholes and basilisks won't come out of them. It's kind of a neat idea. My son likes the basements mod that puts a safe basement in your world, or you can create one. Beefalo milk is kind of fun, but a lot of these are about world gen and making different kind of maps. So I won't bother talking about them because that's more of an advanced kind of thing. And some of them now, Clay has changed it so you can put tin fishing bins on the dock. So this mod doesn't even have a purpose anymore. And then there's ones that are more turf. So anyway, those are the mods that I use. And like I said, very few A tier ones that you absolutely must have. But you get to think about the different ways to make your game a little bit more your speed. That's the server mods. I think in the next video, I will talk about world gen settings. But I'm going to wait a couple of days because Clay is pushing an update on Thursday of this week, a quality of life update that will actually change some world gen stuff as I understand it. So I'll be back later in the week with that video. Bye.